I'll breathe out love when I breathe in. I'll breathe in peace when I breathe out. I'll breathe out love when I breathe in. I'll breathe in peace when I breathe out. I'll breathe out love when I breathe in. I'll breathe in peace when I breathe out. I'll breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
Good morning. My name is Amy Self, and I'm happy to serve as your worship leader this morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. One thing I love about this congregation, is if you come here with a bruised heart in the morning, you can show up here and get a little bit of psychological restoration with the music and ritual and community. If you're joining us online, fill out a visitor form in the link in the description. We'd love to connect with you. I want to extend a very warm welcome with anybody who's visiting us for the first time. Rather than gathering because we all have the same beliefs, we are an intentional community gathered around our shared promise to support each other's spiritual journeys. We don't strive to do things perfectly here, but we do take the needs of people across all generations very seriously. So if you or a small human you're with need to get up and move or squirm or move to a different place or leave or whatever you need to do, just take care of yourself. That's very important to us. So each week we gather. When we gather, we light our chalice, just as 1,000 other congregations in our country do. It is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist past, present, and future. It is a visible reminder of our interconnection. We are not bound together by creed, a specific list of things we believe in exactly the same way. We are united by shared values expressed in our 7 principles and by the commitments we make to each other about what creates this community. Will you join me in saying the words of our mission as I light the chalice this morning? We gather in fellowship.
Will you take a breath with me? My name is Rachel Alba, and I'm the Director of Religious Education here, and I have a little practice and a little story for you this morning. So, have any of you ever been in a classroom setting or a place in life where you wish you could hit a pause button? Yes? Awesome. So, I actually got to take a class once where part of the classroom rules was that anyone at any point could raise their hand and ask for a pause. And so you would raise your hand and say, pause, and the instructor would pause, and you would have a chance to further digest the information or get your brain back on track after it went from like thought 1 to thought 7 to thought 12 to being like, oh, now I'm not even in this room anymore, and come back. Or maybe there was something, this was a pretty emotional class, so like sometimes things would be really emotionally heavy and you just need a moment to like recompose. And you could ask for a pause. And then the instructor would check in with you and say, okay, are we ready to move on? And you would say yes or no, I need more pause. And it was great. And what was so cool is that the people that took this class, we got into the habit of doing that when we were outside of the class. So you'd be having coffee with somebody and you'd be like, oh, let's take a pause. What you said was really heavy. And it was this great way of being able to actually check in with yourself and really, really be present. So we're going to take a moment. David's later on going to talk about doing nothing at all. But part of how we get to do nothing at all is by being present. So we're going to take a moment to be present. And the first thing I want you to do is find something your eyes like to see. And if your eyes like to see the inside of your eyelids, that is also an option. And once you've found that thing you're enjoying looking at, take a deep breath in through your nose and notice if you smell anything. And then notice what you hear other than my voice. Notice the taste in your mouth. And then finally, notice the sensations in your body, the texture of your clothing, the hardness or softness of your chair. And it's really that easy. What's so cool about this and what's really essential about it right now is that we have a lot of things outside of this room that are leading to lots of anxiety or lots of excitement. And those feelings are actually the same thing in our bodies, which is really cool. And we also have things in this building that can be exciting and anxiety-ridden, like capital campaigns and building new buildings. And what's cool about this practice of coming back to the moment of being present is that it actually allows us to slow down a bit. So oftentimes when we are anxious, some of us might not actually notice or label our feelings as anxiety. We might notice rather that we're moving faster or thinking faster than we usually do. That is also anxiety or excitement. And what can be really helpful in those moments, even if you're in a meeting that's in this building, is you can say, I need a pause. I need a moment to come back to being here in this space, in this room. And what's super cool about coming back to the present is that it usually feels safer than where our brain goes when we are anxious or excited and we're moving into the future. So I challenge all of you to take a pause at some point this week. And you can do it in conversation and coffee hour in like an hour. Or you can do it in a meeting, or you can do it in your workout, whatever makes sense. But take a pause.
Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go.
Take a breath with me. Sometimes this space, this time, is a place for catching back up with yourself. Like your body's been traveling through the world faster than your heart or your spirit. And now is the time to slow down enough to let that catch back up with you. Sometimes we're running away from that because what's on your heart or your spirit is difficult. The world is too much with you. The weight of it is too heavy. Not just the events of the day, not just the apparent crumbling of democratic norms, but in our own individual lives. I mean, the care and the love you have for the people who you know who are struggling, the care and the love that you're trying to cultivate for yourself, too. Sometimes it's easier, at least in the short term, to just run faster, work harder, stay busier, not let any of that catch up with you. Last month, I looked at the photos of the floor you're sitting on right now, of the concrete being poured in 1961 or 2, and what I can tell you is that it is strong enough, it is solid enough to hold everything that you're bringing with you today. Not just the floor that you're sitting on, but the community of people around you. We all lend each other courage and borrow each other's strength. We don't have to do it alone. In that spirit, I invite you to call to mind someone who you love who needs your care, someone who you worry over, someone who's struggling. You don't have to call to mind every single person who needs a hug or a hand. Just one, and see if you can picture their face in your imagination. If you can imagine them there in front of you and put a hand on their shoulder or give them a hug. And whisper or say into this room all together that name. Say that name. The murmuring of those names is like a fabric being woven together. Something solid that connects each of us with all of us. When we say that our mission is in part to always love, it means that we're actively seeking connection and compassion across boundaries and borders. It means we're cultivating that feeling that you have when you imagine the person in your life who needs a hug, the care for them. We're practicing finding that place within ourselves where that care lives. Each week in the service, you're invited to come forward to take a stone to symbolize your joys or your sorrows and place it in the earth. And on the one hand, this is a totally private, personal act. You place a stone in symbol of that thing that is heavy on your own heart. And it's a community act. What we make is a whole, this miniature landscape of our inner lives, unique and united, none of us alone. This week, we hold in love and in joy and delight Tom and Karina Denkenwolf. This is 10 years ago, this very weekend, when they first met. For all the blessings and the concerns we carry, for all the ways that our joy is woven together with sorrow and our sorrow with joy, we hold this space with love. And as the music begins, I'll invite you to come forward, the back of the room first, and then the sides and the front, to place a stone and to hold each other along the way.
Paula is now going to share a song on doing and being.
The theologian Henry Nouwen writes, more and more, the desire grows in me to simply walk around, greet people, enter their homes, sit on their doorsteps, play ball, throw water, and be known as someone who wants to live with them. It's a privilege to have the time to practice the simple ministry of presence. Still, he says, it is not as simple as it seems. He writes, my own desire to be useful, to do something significant, to be part of some impressive project is so strong that soon my time is taken up by meetings, conferences, study groups, workshops that prevent me from walking around. It's difficult, he writes, not to have plans, not to organize people around an urgent cause, not to feel like you are working directly all the time for social progress. But I wonder, he says, more and more, I wonder if the first thing shouldn't be to know people by name, to eat and drink with them, to listen to their stories and tell your own, and to let them know with words, handshakes, hugs, that you don't simply like them, but truly love them. In our last year of divinity school, which was 20 years ago, which is not actually what the sermon is about, it's been a minute. In our last year in divinity school, my wife Terry, also a UU minister, her final project, her thesis project, was a study of the Sabbath. And so, by willing extension, both of us had a Sabbath, a weekly Sabbath. Every week, from Friday at sunset to Saturday at sunset, we would refrain from electronics, no phones, no computer, no internet. We would refrain from buying anything, from classwork or homework or housework. We would refrain from sorting and organizing and dishes and laundry, from anything that was work. And we started this in September of that year, both of us with an open mind but nervous. What was going to happen? I think nervous especially in that, like, student in your 20s also working part-time sort of a way of how will we do everything that needs doing if 1/7 of our time was being taken away from the doing of it. For the first couple of months, mostly we just slept. We'd sleep into like 10 a.m. on a Saturday. That is inconceivably late to me now. But we were catching up with ourselves. And then just when it started to feel like it was purely rest and leisure, just then, it's hard to describe it, but the quality of that time started to change. There wasn't any one thing you could point to, but in the rest of the week, I didn't feel stretched quite so thin. And the practice seemed at first to be defined by what we were not doing. Refrain from this and refrain from that. But over time it shifted, and on those Saturdays we'd play board games. We learned to play cribbage that year, and we'd go for walks. We'd read, we'd talk. It didn't begin to feel like an absence at all, but a presence of each of us to the other, but also of each of us to ourselves. One of the ancient roots of the word Sabbath is quieting the heart. That is the practice not just of ceasing from working and doing, but ceasing from all those anxieties that prevent you from quieting your heart. The 20th century Jewish philosopher and theologian Abraham Joshua Heschel said that when Romans first encountered Jews, and in doing so encountered the Sabbath practice, this commandment that one day a week be set aside from all work, the Romans thought this was just pure laziness. Heschel writes, when the Romans met the Jews and noticed their strict adherence to abstaining from labor, their only reaction was contempt. They believed, as Aristotle had, that the purpose of relaxation is only for the sake of gaining new strength for new efforts. Relaxation is not the end, it is the means to an end, labor. It's easy, man, it's so easy to fall into that same sort of thinking that the Romans did. The purpose of relaxation is to be a better worker, a more productive citizen. This shows up all the time, like in corporate wellness culture. Microsoft research found that workers who took a 20-minute walk in nature came back to their work with greater divergent attention, meaning they had more creative ideas on returning than those who kept working. Or do any of you, have you used the Pomodoro technique? Some of you? Yep. So this involves working for 25 minutes and then taking a 3 to 5 minute break. And it's a method of avoiding procrastination, and it's also a method of sort of keeping focus. And don't misunderstand, it is not bad to be efficient. It is not bad to take breaks or to be more creative and more focused in the doing so. The trouble comes when we make relaxation only a means toward the end of labor, as if our highest and best purpose is just to work harder and do more and hustle longer. Heschel writes, to the biblical mind, labor is the means toward an end. And the Sabbath as a day of rest, a day of abstaining from toil, is not for the purpose of recovering one's lost strength and becoming fit for forthcoming labor. He writes, the Sabbath is a day for the sake of life. Man is not a beast of burden, and the Sabbath is not for the purpose of enhancing the efficiency of his work. Heschel says, in this beautiful poetic language, he says, he who wants to enter the holiness of the day must first lay down the profanity of clattering commerce, of being yoked to toil. He must go away from the screech of dissonant days, from the nervous and fury of acquisitiveness, and the betrayal in embezzling his own life. He must say farewell to work and learn to understand the world has already been created. 6 days a week, we wrestle with the world, wringing profit from the earth. On the Sabbath, Heschel says, we especially care for the seed of eternity planted in the soul. Spiritual practice, whether it is Sabbath, or singing, or service, or silence, all of it is a kind of not doing, a kind of stepping outside of the rush to do and make and produce and consume. Any spiritual discipline reaffirms and calls attention to the fact that we're not here just to work. And in that sense, it doesn't take the Sabbath and the intensity of that practice to be a wake-up call. Any one of those spiritual practices can be a reminder. Like the old story of the guy staying at a hotel who asks for a wake-up call the next morning, and at 6 o'clock the phone rings and a voice says, "What are you doing with your life?" Wide awake. Maybe, hopefully a little more gently than that. The spiritual disciplines of rest, of a time set apart from doing and making, of intentionally cultivating joy, lets you, first of all, hear that question instead of running away from it, and second of all, answer that question, that you don't have to earn your worthiness by doing, you already have it. That sort of work that time for rest, for intentionally cultivating joy, pleasure in your own life and living. In a moment in the world like this, when every day the news feels overwhelming and terrifying and almost unbelievable sometimes, it can feel like you don't have permission to be joyful. If you are waiting for permission to experience joy, this is me giving you permission to experience joy. I don't think you need me to give you permission to experience joy. But exactly in a moment like this, exactly when the world is so much with us, this is the time to be whole people. I don't think the world needs us right now to be people who are better and faster and smarter and producing more. I think the world needs from us right now to be people who are grounded, who are human, who remember all of who we are and what we're about and can invite others into that kind of living. The author and activist Adrienne Marie Brown wrote a book called Pleasure Activism, in part to try and counter this idea of the dour, serious, anxious, depressed activist, who many of us have been at times, right? Pleasure, she says, is what sustains us in struggle. So sure, it's a means to an end, but also it is the end for which we're struggling. She says, explaining what she means by this word, she says, I definitely have people look at me when I start talking about the idea like, it's just pure debauchery is what you want us to do? It's just escapism? And I'm like, no, she says. It's about pure aliveness. It's about actually being present to the world around you. Pleasure, she says, is happiness, joy, contentment, satisfaction. And it reminds us to enjoy being alive and being alive on purpose. Pleasure, she says, joy, happiness, awakeness. This is one of the ways we know that we're free, that we're always free, that we always have the power to co-create the world. And it helps us move through times that are unfair, through grief and loneliness and terror, and days when the demands are just overwhelming. It reminds us that even in the dark, we're alive. Feeling good, she says, is not frivolous. It's freedom. And it's not, she adds, about generating or indulging in excess. Sometimes I bring this work up to people and I can see a bacchanalia unfold in their eyes. And it makes me, she writes, it makes me actually feel tender, because most of us are so repressed. Our fantasies go to the extremes to counterbalance all this contained longing. Pleasure activism is about learning what it means to be satisfiable, what it means to have an abundance from which we can have enough. To which I might add, I think it means letting your heart and soul catch up with your body and be all of who you are, not to live your life in a narrow segment of just work or just anxiety or just terror for what's coming in the months ahead, but to be a person with a body, to be a person who takes care of yourself. It's not a failure to do that. The aliveness is the engine of activism, not from a dour sense of doom or obligation or anger, not in order to earn something, but out of a sense of wholeness and activism, which knows the goal for us, for everyone, is joyfulness, is a world in which every part of us is welcome, belongs. Medicine, not escape. And that doesn't have to look like a Sabbath practice of one day set aside. We made it to the end of that year of grad school, and that was about the last time we actually set aside on purpose. It's tough to do that when you're not being graded on it. But someone this morning said, oh, I could do that one evening a week. I could turn my phone off at 6 o'clock, not just on silent, but power that thing down and put it in a drawer in another room. They did not suggest locking the door. For me, that would be helpful. And turn off the electronics and not buy or do or tend to the housework, but make this time and space. You can make that kind of space inside any moment. The writer Kurt Vonnegut tells the story. He says he's headed out the door one day and his wife asks, where are you going? And he says, I'm going to buy an envelope. And she says, you're not a poor man? Why don't you go online and buy 100 envelopes and put them in the closet? And so, says Kurt Vonnegut, I pretended not to hear her. And I go out to get an envelope because I'm going to have a hell of a good time in the process of buying one envelope. I meet a lot of people and talk with them, and a fire engine goes by and I give them a thumbs up. And I ask a woman on the street, what kind of dog is that? And I don't know, he says, of course, the computers will do us out of that, but what the computers don't realize or don't care is that we are dancing animals. That's the work. Whatever time you set aside, whether it's in one moment or a whole day, is to remember, not just to know that we're dancing animals, but to practice it. To practice. Amen. Friends, we rise in body and spirit. Let's close in song together.
Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift to all inspire, and have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass and hopeless gain. And striving so my love profess, but not be given by love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control. Our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are freed.
Each week we split our profits with works in Boulder that are doing things to make the world a better place. This month, our offering goes to Boulder Food Rescue, which is a nonprofit that provides healthy food by bicycle, food that would normally go to waste, and it gives it to low-income families. So it's a very wonderful cause. And I would like to introduce you to Gail Frommelt, a long-term volunteer with Boulder Food Rescue, to say a few words.
Thank you for allowing me to be here today and be part of this beautiful celebration, and to do one of my favorite things, which is to talk about Boulder Food Rescue. Boulder Food Rescue started in 2012. It was a handful of young people who wanted to make the world a better place by feeding the hungry, lessening waste, and saving the planet. Since that time, our organization has grown to 192 volunteers. And since 2012, we have diverted 6 million pounds of food. We have redistributed from the landfill into the bellies of our friends and neighbors. Since that time also, the organization and the mission has grown to create a more just and sustainable food system. We waste about 40% of the food that we grow, yet 1 in 8 children in Colorado go hungry. There's something really wrong with that. So this organization distributes food to people in our community. We do it by bicycle, and we bring it to where people work, love, and play. So it's helped decrease a lot of barriers to food that people experience, whether it's having to fill out forms or to leave your home and face fear of encountering ice. We bring the food to where people live. And we do it in a way that empowers people to make decisions about their own food distribution and to come together as a community. So if you'd like to be a part of this, I'm going to be hanging out at coffee afterwards. Please know that, for years I did a food run where you lift and carry the food and you use the bicycle. You don't have to do that. At this point, I do fill in, and I do it by car, and when I've got that heavy box of potatoes, I ask a young person to help me, and no one has declined yet. So if you have a talent or an interest or just want to be something good in your community that's helping people every day, please talk to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. As the baskets come around, or as you scan the QR code, which is up on the screen, I invite you to give as generously as you are able. May our gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to Boulder and the wider community. Before we close, I have 2 invitations. First, at 12:30 today, in the back of this room, we will have a musician circle. All instruments and abilities are welcome, and even if you didn't bring an instrument, just come by and sing or say hello and meet some new people. And finally, our capital campaign to expand the building and our annual pledge drive to fund our budget are underway this month. After the service, you can see the building plans and renderings in the Emerson room just outside the door. Check the listings in the hall to see who your pledge steward is and set up a time to meet with them, hopefully by the end of the month. Our closing words are by E.B. White. Every morning I awaken torn between a desire to save the world and the inclination to savor it. This makes it hard to plan the day. But if we forget to savor the world, what possible reason do we have for saving it? In a way, the savoring must come first. Will you rise in body or in spirit as we close in song?
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turn